Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FIDE Berlin Grand Prix. It's the second day of classical chess. Say hello to Benjamin, the newest member of the family. He has the proud positioning of the thumbnail. He's a little bit antsy right now because I've been holding him here for a little bit trying to get situated. He also pooped on the carpet in my office today. So he feels very at home in this room. Very, very calm boy. He's turning 10 weeks old tomorrow. I will not make the entire recap with him. Instead, I will put him on the ground and he will go back to being a puppy. But his rating is 650. So, we're going to drill some tactics later today, teach him an opening for white, and he'll be well on his way to 800, 900, and beyond. He's been studying the How to Win at Chess Steps series. Anyway, I love you, goofball. Say hello to the YouTube audience. You can call him Benjamin, you can call him Benji, you can call him Goofball, and anything in between. Let's talk some chess. I love you. I'm going to put you down now, okay? We'll see what he decides to do. He likes to chew the carpet in this room. Okay. So, today we had a second day of classical chess between Levon Ranyan and Hikaru Nakamura. He decided to just lay down. Maybe we'll get him a couch and he'll sit on the couch behind me. Levon begins with e4. And Hikaru plays e5, so we have an e4, e5, and I don't think that Levon's going to be playing bishop b5 to enter into Hikaru's Ruy Lopez. Instead, he plays bishop to c4, which is exactly what Andrei Yesipenko did in his must-win game in the 6th game of classical in the group stage. Hikaru plays bishop c5, and here we don't see Evans' gambit, we don't see Max Lang, we don't see any of that stuff. Levon actually plays a move order which is a bit peculiar. He plays d3. Normally what happens here is you play c3, d4, and then, for example, knight f6, d3. It kind of becomes like this. But d3 immediately has a little bit of a nuance. It's been played recently by Magnus Carlsen against Vidit in Tata Steel 2022. Obviously, you all studied that game. You remember how it went. Magnus put his knight on c3 instead of the pawn, so he fought for the center with the knight. Yesipenko did the same thing against Jordan van Forest. In this game, after castles, Levon actually doesn't put his knight on c3. Hikaru here chooses to play d6. Now, it's important to note that there are already so many nuances of this position, which is one of the reasons I tell beginners that they should really not play e4, e5. Like, if you're going to play e4, e5, play the Vienna. It's a lot more fun, because let me tell you right now, the positions and the plans here are absurd. For example, Hikaru plays d6 in this position, he could also play short castle. He also can play a6 or the pawn to a5. The reason why black would go here, which Hikaru has played himself in the past, is to play d5, is to actually just attack the center with the pawn straight away, and this leads to very forcing play. Like, white gets a direct line of attack against this pawn. White has the active bishop, but black has good center presence. So d6 is played because after c3... What's up, buddy? Oh, he's eating the chair. Okay, nothing crazy. So d6 is played because black is going to delay castling and sometimes even play h6, g5. So there are games where black will play like g5. I mean, black basically is like, oh, well, you castled and I didn't. You suck, so h6, g5, and, there you go. He's like really eating the chair. Going to be a slightly distracted recap. Maybe not h6, g5 right away. Sometimes black will even castle, but I digress, which I've been saying a lot in my recap. So c3, a6. Now, right here is the moment where a5 has been played, namely the game Alexienko, Carlsen. There's also Van Forest, who recently played this against Karyakin and Tata Steel, so this has also been pretty popular. But the entire idea of playing a6 is obviously to play a5, which is b5, which is one of the reasons why Levon plays a4 here, to prevent that. But the other point of playing a6 is to bring the bishop back to a7 from where it's a sniper and from where it cannot be hit with any tempo, right? So that's why you have bishop to a7. Now, in this position, there are many other moves. So, for example, there is castles here, or even after bishop to a7, there is castles. And Magnus and Anand have played games like this. Hikaru has played like this as well, where after... actually, maybe Hikaru played after bishop a7. It was like bishop a7, something with a rook e1, and then he would play like knight to g4 and attack. I actually do think it was castles, rook e1, knight g4, and then here after h3, there's like some f5 ideas. king h8 and f5. So for example, king h8, h3, f5, like this. Hikaru has played this before, and this is a very wild idea where black sidesteps, you know, the pin of the bishop on c4, and decides to... Oh, I guess Doggy left the room. Like, look at that. He's like a ninja. I mean, it's like, I thought he was under my chair. He just left the room. I didn't even realize. And Hikaru has played like this, and it's one of the very like aggressive ways to play the position, to get king h8, attack this, and play f5. Bishop a7 played, knight a3, knight e7. So knight a3 is played because you want to get the knight to c2, and then ultimately trade something on the e3 square. Black is moving the knight over to g6, and the following position has been played between two guys. You might have heard of them. They're not like super great at chess, but they're okay. You know, they're slowly getting better. Vishwanathan Anand with white and Magnus Carlsen with black. They had this position with like very similar position actually with white and with black in 2016. They both had took turns playing. I think Magnus played some a5 maybe in one of the games to prevent white from playing b4. There was another game, I think, I think maybe Anand played a5, but knight g4 was also played at some point to try to trade knights. Castles was played in the game, or knight g4 was played after a5, I believe. So white plays a5 to prevent any expansion on that side of the board. Now, these guys are still following very high-level games. Let me turn off the heater. It's very hot. Okay. Cool. So let's just take a moment to decompress. We had the heat on in the room because Doggy, you know, it's cold. Also, I had to air out the room because he pooped on the carpet, so I had to get some cold air in here. Listen, all right, at least I slept last night, so we're getting a little bit more of a serious recap today, not a delusional one where I might have to be put in psychiatric care. So, a5. There was a game played here between Jan Krzysztof Duda and Jeffrey Xiong, 2020 Vaikanze, and Jeffrey played b5. Jan took en passant, and then they drew the game. Not after, like, it's not like he took en passant and then they just drew. They drew like 70 moves later. And there have been other games here. Hikaru plays c6. Now, when you look at the move c6, it does two things. Number one, it opens the queen. Number two, it builds for the middle. Levon anticipates that d5 is coming, so he moves to b3 because he just feels like black will just get out of here, and the bishop is actually better on this diagonal as the center is going to open up. h6, bishop c2, both guys bring the rooks, and like now is the moment where in a position of 8 pawns each, you have to make pawn play, and Hikaru should highly consider the move d5. He should consider d5 because let's say white doesn't take, white just plays the move h3. Black will come in with knight f4. This is the $1 million horse square in e4, e5 positions. The difference being that, you know, black saves the knight and white doesn't. White's knight will not stay there. So that's kind of the point. You want to play d5. So if you take the pawn, black just gets two very healthy pawns in the center. Play might continue d4, e4, and d5 is a bit weak, but the bishop is blocked out. So actually black has a pretty nice position. Of course, white will not sit around. White will fight against this pawn, and chess will get played as opposed to any other game. But Hikaru spins a while and he doesn't go d5. He didn't like something about the move d5. I don't know what he didn't like about the move d5 because I haven't asked him what he didn't like about the move d5. I don't know. Yeah, so he doesn't play d5. He chooses something else. He chooses queen c7. And Levon doesn't even blink. Like, Levon just plays d4 immediately because he's like, look, if you don't want the center, I mean, I'm going to take the center. So that's that. Now, black has to think a little bit. It's not very easy to figure out what to do. For example, if you play knight f4 now, that also looks very reasonable, but white will just play queen d2, rook d1. At some point, I might kick the knight out, like I might play g3, because I'm not really worried about check. I just move my king, it's not really a problem. But this knight, with the queen kind of passive behind the pawns, may be slightly different than the other situation, when the queen at least can get out this way. So Hikaru just takes on d4, and remember I just told you you kind of want to have the pawns in the center. Well, you can't, right? You would just lose a pawn, and there's just no reason to be down a pawn. The difference being that yesterday, when Hikaru was down a pawn, he counterbalanced it with very active pieces. In this case, you don't have that, right? So queen takes d4. Now black has to figure out how to develop. There's a lot of opportunities. You can put your bishop to e6. You can also put your bishop to g4. And you can trade like this and then camp on the e5 square and finish your development. White is going to rely on the queenside space to kind of negate the movement of these pawns. Maybe in the long run, I'm going to create an endgame weakness, right? So imagine queens and rooks got traded and white just, oh, well, I just said rooks got traded. Okay, one pair of rooks, not both. And white just attacks this pawn. It's a weakness, right? It's a very big weakness. So that's kind of the advantage of what's going on the queen side. Hikaru spends some time and plays the move c5. c5 is a very big commitment because, yes, you attack the queen, but you really weaken this square. So what does Hikaru do here? He's like, well, that knight wants to go there, right? Well, now that knight has too good of a choice. And Hikaru actually does give away the knight for the bishop. And I always talk about this. Sorry, the bishop for the knight. I always talk about this. You really shouldn't make trades like this, like takes. You shouldn't do this. More often than not, bishops are better than knights. But the difference here is that the light-scored bishop of white is blocked on this diagonal and doesn't have any real targets on this diagonal. f7 is very well protected. And this knight had too good of a future on d5. So the knight was going to get to d5 and terrorize you. But let's not forget that white still has a knight remaining, right? So he plays the move queen d1. That's actually a great move. The point is that he wants to play knight d2. So for example, if you play knight just back to f6, knight d2, right? And let's say you make an improving move. I'm going to go knight f1, maybe even. But let's say like knight c4. You would like to play d5. But when I take, now I'm actually threatening some nasty stuff. I could even threaten to just do this and damage your structure. So now your pawns are a little bit ugly. At the same time, I also don't have to do that. Everything that just occurred helped me. Now white's bishop actually does have a purpose in life, right? Rediscovered himself at the age of 35, went back to school, got a degree never thought was possible. I don't know. Life message for maybe some of you who might be struggling. It's never too late, never too early. b5 though is what Hikaru chooses. He goes b5 because if white continues with knight d2, there is no knight c4. And if you play knight back to f1, black just gets very active. So now, remember I just told you about that whole idea to make a weakness? Now there are no weaknesses. Black's position is very solid. So when b5 happens, we're talking about a cultured individual, Levon. He obviously takes en passant. And we have queen takes b6. So this is hit, right? What do? You have a couple of options. Number one, you could just push the pawn up a square. You push the pawn up a square, maybe black plays a5, so you can't ever play b4, and starts bringing the rook this way. Black can also play knight e5. And after knight takes e5, you have the option, I mean, probably rook takes e5 is the dumbest, there's like no reason to do this. Your rook will just get kicked out and white will take space. But you can take with the pawn, splitting your pawns, but now you have no weakness, right? It's gone. You don't have the d-pawn as a liability. You also could take with the knight. You could, and f4 is just too much. Your king is here, c4 check comes in, just a little bit too much. And if you try to play king h1 in order to play f4, I'm going to play c4. So I'm going to activate my queen anyway, and you got to be careful. You can't just lose the f2 pawn. So black is plenty active. He's quite active, and b3 might not do it. If you let Stockfish think here for a little bit, it actually starts really liking the move rook b1. And I mean, who doesn't like the move rook b1? It's like the greatest song ever. And obviously the other idea here is you want to play b4. So let's just say we continue in the same course that we just did, knight d2. And white is ready with b4. If you try to play c4, like we just talked about, we have g3, king g2, and f4 to kick the knight out. But in the long run, we also could just, we will have this idea as well to activate. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You let Stockfish run. For some reason, it really likes this very passive move. It thinks that white has good long-term prospects. Levon doesn't do that. Levon here spends some time, also there's rook a2. There's rook a2, sideway defense. Like, rook a2 looks a little bit more human to me, but even rook b1, I see this. Having said that, it really helps knowing that Stockfish says that it likes rook b1, because then I can start adding kind of reasoning behind it, right? That's what we have to remember. Whenever you analyze games with engines, and it says rook b1, you can't just be like, oh, well, duh. Like, what's the reason? Like, why does it like rook b1? As a human, I think rook a2 is far more logical, you know? At least you keep an eye over here, but yeah, computer seems to really, really think that this is the way to go. And like I said, basically what white wants is a position like knight d2, rook d8, and a position like something with a knight on e3 in the long run. This really can't be taken because of knight d5. And if black just waits around and doesn't do anything, the knight will come to d5, the bishop will be opened, this pawn will be a liability. Having said all that, folks, you must be waiting for the move that Levon played. And, well, I tried to introduce it as best as I can. Levon played knight d2. which attacks the knight, but there's just queen takes b2. I think what is happening here is this is a bit of a concession by white, because now this knight is hanging, but you can't take it because of the bishop. And if you play something like bishop b3, I will move my knight, like let's say knight e5. And here there is this absurd idea, rook e3, which boxes in the king, right? Queen boxes in the queen, tries to trap it with rook a2. Very, very powerful. But if black plays this knight, you don't have rook e3. And if you play h3, looking for rook e3, black strikes right away with the absurd knight takes f2. King f2, knight d3, you get in, you start taking stuff, very complex game. And Levon doesn't do that. He doesn't play bishop b3. Maybe he didn't think this was possible, or he just wanted the following sequence of moves to happen. Knight c4 attacking the queen. Queen takes the pawn in order to attack the knight. Knight b6 creating the threat of the rook and the knight at the same time. But the problem is that you still can't take this. So Hikaru hangs out right next to the bishop. If you take my knight, I take the bishop. And so the players repeat moves, which makes me think, and obviously draw, which makes me think, I'm like, did Levon not think queen b2 was possible because he thought of this idea like rook e3, etc., to trap the queen? Or did Levon, and he maybe missed something, or was this just a draw offer? Like, was Levon just kind of like, I don't like my position after rook b1. I'm not Stockfish. I don't know that it's better for me. So knight d2 is basically a draw offer. I think that knight d2 is a draw offer. I think he saw this sequence of moves and he had enough. And tomorrow, the FIDE Grand Prix in Berlin will be decided with a rapid tiebreak. Hope you enjoyed. This is definitely not as exciting of a game as yesterday, but don't be mad at me, okay? Listen, some of you are like insane. You'd be like, why did I watch this? There was some comment yesterday that was like, I'm gonna read you guys the comment. I'm gonna find this comment. This comment made me crack up. All right. Somebody left this comment in yesterday's video. Same perpetual garbage, some spurious showmanship, contrived drama, and a draw. Let's go get our checks and go home. This will give the lesser nerds something to chew on till we get paid again. Chess today is pure dog shite. Now, I know what you guys think. You guys are probably like, oh, they wrote that comment to get pinned. Folks, no. Some people very obviously write hate to get pinned. Some people just don't realize that no one cares about their crazy opinion and they just write it. Those are the people that you see recorded on Reddit trying to attack managers at like food chains. You know what I'm talking about? Seen those videos? Someone gets mad their food is taking a while, so they get in a fight with someone. Like, the person who wrote that comment yesterday has a bunch of insane, a bunch of insane comments. Anyway, I'm sorry that today's game was not interesting, but after tomorrow, we will know who wins the Grand Prix. And let me know if you want to see more of Benjamin. You should follow me on Twitter, @GothamChess, shocking username. That's all I have for you today. I'm very sorry, but I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow for the conclusion of the Grand Prix. Get out of here.